in the whole world that could do 2,000 dinners. 3 of you. Can you imagine that? I said, it'd be fantastic. What a reputation you'd have. Yeah, but I mean, we'll be dead if we do. So, no. I said, we'll figure it out. It's going to be great fun. Cooking to order for 2,000 people. All right, so this idea, if you will, in terms of goal setting, an important tool, okay, that relates to this, that relates to the success of the restaurant. What's the score? And letting people know that score in terms of getting these people to perform, letting them know how well we're doing. They know we're 20% ahead in customers. They know we're doing thousands of more meals each month than we've done the previous year. And that's what gives them the benefits, and that's what gives them the pay, and that's what makes them winners. They share in those victories. They don't have to know the net profit. They're looking at customer counts and the fact that we got something that's tuned to what the market wants, in spite of the recession, in spite of the weather, in spite of all the adversity that everybody else is looking at and saying, this is what makes it okay for us. You know, the economy is down. Nonsense, the economy is down. Sure it is. Realistically, practically, it's not down if you're working at building all the time. Practically, it doesn't have to be down as far as it is if you're working at building all the time. This idea then, if you will, of a philosophy that business is people is what I'm sharing with you here. Business is people. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care if you're an architect, a dentist, or an engineer. It's an understanding, if you will, of how to create customers, if you will. It's not the technical expertise that they have. It's an understanding of how to get customers coming to them. What sorts of things above and beyond the technical skill and knowledge that they have does it take to make this business very, very successful? And you recognize that there can be some people with equal knowledge in direct competition with each other. One of them's doing the business and the other one's not. And that's because one of them understands that business is people. That business is fun and excitement. How to give that away, that's the highest perceived value. That friendship and fun and excitement are things that are precious even to the dental business. Hey, I got a dentist that's absolutely crazy. That's why I like to go to him. I mean, he's more fun than anything. When I go to him, and whenever he has to take an x-ray, I know that the fun is about to begin. Not just for me, but for anybody. He goes to those dental trade shows and he buys horrible x-rays. Now he comes back and he takes my x-ray and he comes out with this thing and he says, would you look at this? And he shows me some terrible condition in somebody's mouth somewhere in the world. And I'm looking at that thing and he says, can you imagine what I'm going to have to do to you to cure this? He doesn't do that all the time. He just brings it out once in a while. Now, if it's your first visit in the office and he does it to you, my goodness, it scares you a little bit. But you do have to laugh, and you're greatly relieved when you find out that there only is one filling. Instead of blowing a hole in the side of your head and remodeling you, he is now going to just simply have to do one little filling or a little bit of work. So the idea of making you laugh while you're there, the idea of talking to you while you're there. He carries on a conversation with 5 or 6 offices at the same time. People can hardly wait to get in to see this guy. And across the hall, there's another guy who has time going by, who went to the same school in the same class, and has the same knowledge. Sitting over there, and anytime you want to walk in that office without an appointment, you're welcome to do so, because he has a lot of open appointments. He's not really very busy. He's technically competent. Not really very busy. People wait for hours to go to the one I'm going to. Wait for hours. Across the way, you wouldn't have to go. He'd do it for you. He'd be just as good. But it's more fun to go to the dentist that I'm going to. Why is he successful? He understands business as people. He understands that. So he makes it interesting and a little bit different, a little bit fun for those people. All right, the challenge and the excitement, if you will, in our business is the never-ending pursuit of excellence. How to do it better. How to do it better. Such basic stuff we have to do a little bit better. Okay, and keep working at that. Never-ending pursuit of building the customers. People say, well, when will you ever quit? When do you quit? You don't ever quit. You don't. I mean, I'm ready to put another addition on the restaurant. I'm looking at that, and I'm trying to figure out what's the next logical step here. I don't want to build a restaurant that has 400 seats or 500 seats and have some sort of a great big problem for somebody else to manage someday. What I'm looking at here is, What should I do on the rest of the property? I'm trying to figure out how to make this a better place of hospitality in there. I could add more seats and be immediately successful and fill them up and do even more business. Now, the 5 million too makes us one of the 100 largest restaurants in the United States, 46th or something, or that we were on the last rating of the independent restaurants in the United States. We're 46th largest. And I keep looking at that guy who's doing the most business. He's doing $23 million a year in one restaurant. And I keep thinking, you know, it would be easy to do that. That would be easy to do, except what do you do with such a monument now that it's been built when you want to sell it? Who's going to pick that baby up and run it again, you know, for him? This guy, it would be easy to do that in Fort Lauderdale, to pick it up and run a $23 million restaurant. Could be done. There is no doubt. It could be done. There are 5 of the largest restaurants in the United States right in Fort Lauderdale on the thing. One of them is doing, I think the largest one is doing $10.8 million. And he's got 600 seats. I say, for crying out loud, I could do that much volume with 600 seats. I'm trying to do it with 240 seats, and I'm only open at dinner time. I said, I'm not even doing it at lunch. I said, if I had parking space at noon. If I had the parking space at noon, I said, I think I would add on lunch here, and I could get the volume up. But with 240 seats, to be doing as much as we are, we got to be among the top 10 in the United States in terms of volume per dining seat on the thing. We're getting up there real high. Now, how to build it up there, that never-ending pursuit of excellence, that never-ending strengthening of the customer value and orientation towards the customer. I guess what I've said to you in this first segment here is that management must lead. That's what I've said. Management must make something happen on the property. You are the ones that bring your place of hospitality alive. If you've been talking about the outside conditions that are adversely affecting your business, that's your problem, that's your fault. One step at a time. The trick is for you to turn yours around and now to laugh at the people who are standing there sitting still, waiting for customers to come to them. Customers go to the place where the best value is in terms of the experience. And they're not stupid. They're getting smarter and smarter all the time. If you think that when the economy turns around, which it will, there is no doubt, that you will have the magic cure, that you will go back to extracting profit, you're wrong. Because some of you will have had enough guts and gumption to get up and start working for customers, start to make it happen in your own places of hospitality, and now that it's happening there, the customers will keep right on going to your place. As their disposable income increases, they will go more and more often. So those of you that sit back and let it happen are headed towards, you've already taken that first step towards the beginning of the end. I'm saying to you, you've got to be upfront and make it happen in your own places of hospitality. That a manager who has the attitude can do, will do. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have a coffee break scheduled for right now, and then right after that, we're going to take off on the formula to do it, on the thing from product to presentation to people, and then word-of-mouth advertising and promotions. And we'll do that right after the break. So let's take the break. All interested in those figures, and they're putting it all together, and they're wondering how you do that, and how you do that much volume and with those few seats. And how long do Americans sit and eat? Well, I'll tell you something. In Australia, they ask me the same thing, and they tell me right away the answer is Australians like to eat differently than Americans. I said, no, that's not true. I said, you know, it's so funny. I said, when Australians come to the U.S., they just happen to fall right into the same habits that we have in terms of eating. I said, do you understand that I suppose that at home, with 5 children, that whether Lorraine spent 15 minutes getting dinner ready or she spent 15 hours getting dinner ready, that when it's dinner time, the kids know what they're supposed to do. The kids are out in the kitchen minutes before that volunteering to help. You know, they may have avoided the kitchen studiously up to this point on the thing, but minutes beforehand, they're willing to help get this food on the table. They're ready to eat. Now, you don't have to tell them what to do at the table. When food is put down in front of them, they know exactly what to do. In fact, in most experiences that we have at our house, Lorraine ends up not eating at all. She's directing traffic there. Chew with your mouth shut, eat your peas, drink your milk. You can't leave the table till everybody else does. Eat your salad. She's so busy aiming these remarks and directing things that her food's getting cold on the plate. And these kids, I've got one girl that has never eaten a pea in her life. This girl, when she was a baby, small, she used to mash those peas up and they'd disappear in the gravy. It was just magic. They'd just be gone. She got a little bit older, and she used to flip them over her shoulder. Now we'd find them on the floor and elsewhere around the room, but she never ate them. Then she got a little older, and she could slide them under the lettuce leaves and the bones and in other things. She could make them disappear that way. And finally, as she got older to a point where she could say, no, thank you, I won't have any peas, I'll have some more salad or something. She sort of has studiously avoided peas her whole life. And yet Lorraine is the one who's told four of them listened to her and ate peas. This one never ate a pea. Now, she hasn't grown very big, and Lorraine always points to her and says, the reason you're so short is you never ate peas your entire life, I can see that these other kids got to be humongous big, but you have, leveled off at about 4 foot, 10 inches tall, and you're age 24 years old, and it's because you didn't eat peas on the thing. Well, she can point to that, but I'll tell you what. That girl did know what to do when she sat down at the table. When I go to Australia, and I know this doesn't happen here in South Africa, but when I go to Australia and I enjoy one of those 3 or 4 hour dining experiences that they say Australians like, I find that at those 15-minute intervals between courses, I find myself consuming more beer and more wine than I should. Now, those people take great pride in how many gallons of each they drink with each meal and then what their national average is in comparison to us. I say, that's no fun. I say, the only reason we're drinking is because we don't know what to do with our hands in between courses. If you will just keep that flow of food moving to the table, in our case it's service, if you'll just keep the courses coming, when you put them down in front of people, they know what to do. They will eat the food when it's being served, and it's being served hot or cold. They will eat it. And then you clear the course and you bring them another course. I think the niftiest idea for a restaurant, I use this when I'm teaching in class, I say would be for somebody to figure out how to prepare and make a food presentation where you serve the food in a bucket. The dessert is on the bottom and the appetizer's on the top. And you just put the bucket down and let them take as long as they want to eat. And I said, now let's go a step further. Let us go one step further. And on that table in this restaurant, let us sell that bucket of food for just what the cost of the food is. It's a $5 bucket, or it's a $6 bucket, or it's a $8 bucket, but not too much. Whatever the cost of this pail full of food is. And we will now put a taximeter on the table. If there's a party of 4, there'll be a basic charge of $5 for the first 20 minutes per person. So we put $15 on the meter for a party of 3 and let them relax and enjoy themselves for 20 minutes. But when it gets to 21 minutes, let us now have the meter ringing it off at $3 a minute. Let them sit and talk and visit as long as they want while they're watching that meter, and pretty soon they'll figure out the trick in this restaurant is to take your bucket of food and eat as fast as you can and get out of here. I said, everybody in the business will make a lot more money once the public starts to understand this, but short of that, let us simply provide them with a continuous flow of food without too much interruption, without too many intervals. When I see people sitting at tables waiting, it's costing me money because of my own organization and delivery system. I've got to figure out how to sequence that production and deliver that product so the flow is there. I want to hit them with enough food so that pretty soon they figure, man, I got to stand up or I'm going to die right here at the table. When this all hits bottom, I'm just going to pass right out here, And so I want to give them the food in that flow and get them out. Now, right after I learned that 3-hour presentation in Australia, they said, hey, we want to take you to a restaurant. Best steakhouse in Australia. There was a newspaper article about it that said it was the best steakhouse in Australia. And they took me there. Now, this one was too good. This was a really good restaurant. There's the owner. He's the only cook there is in this restaurant. He's the only cook there is. He's back there cooking. Now, the waiter hasn't even got us to the table yet. The owner saw us coming in. He didn't know who I was or who the people I was with. He didn't know who they were. And before I had even gotten into the chair, the first course was at the table. We hadn't ordered anything. Here's the first course. Now we sit down. I said, well, this can't be for us. And they said, oh, no, it is. This is part of the deal. You see, he saw us coming in. And he starts that first course cooking. And if it works out just right, that first course hits that table right about the time you're being seated. Wow. And he kept the flow of this stuff coming at us there. The second course was on the table before they got the food order. I thought, how's he ever going to do this then? You know, he's going to have 10 or 15 minutes to cook that steak, at maybe 20, depending on how we want it cooked and how big it is. He's got some time to go here with this steak, but I want to tell you something. The third course came, and by the time they cleared that third course, here's 3 courses, the steak came. This guy and I, who were talking and visiting and having a heck of a good time, 2 of us together, had a bottle of wine and a drink before dinner or 2, 1 hour, and we were in and out. I said, God, am I glad we're leaving. If I'd eaten anything else, I'd have pure exploded in that place. I said, I didn't want dessert. That was included. I just said, no. No dessert. I want out of here. I said, can you imagine this? Australians tell me about a 3-hour experience, and that's what they expect. That's nonsense that they expect that. That's what they get. That's not what they expect. They know what to do when food comes, just like South Africans know what to do when food comes. The secret is management has to figure out how to deliver that food product the way it should be when it should be delivered. And time that, if you will, time that experience. In my case, we get the people through in an hour and a half, basically. We allow an hour and a half turn. In calculating reservations, we take reservations as well, and we honor reservations. No joke. We honor those reservations on that basis. Sometimes people sit more than an hour and a half. Sometimes they go faster than an hour and a half. Sometimes people don't show up. I got all those variables into the system. But I tell you what, an hour and a half is about the average for the turn for a party of 2, 3, 4, or 5. When we get up to 6s, now we start talking 2 hours. And so our bigger tables don't turn so much. So if you're looking, in the case of South Florida, if you're looking for turn, if you're looking for volume, you don't want to have too many big tables, eh? Not too many on the thing, or you simply slow your whole production right down. I will serve 3 turns on a busy Saturday night on a table for 6. That's 6 hours worth of time consumed from 5 o'clock on. I will serve 3 times there and 4 times on the other tables. So I get more chair rent by having tables for 4 than I do by having tables for 6. I should charge more for those 6s now that I've talked about it here for a while. That's the answer, right? I should charge them a little bit more, those guys, for 6 or 8, and say, listen, you can save money by busting up into smaller tables here on the thing. You see, they take more time, so I don't want to have too many tables there. I have to figure out ways, and there's a restaurant over in Tampa, Florida, that now is taking the dessert off the main table. Dessert is now served in a special room, which used to be their cocktail lounge, but is now called his dessert room and cocktail lounge. And he serves cordials and coffee and dessert in that room only. So it gets the people off the table. The name of the game is turnover on the table, because unfortunately we can't teach people to eat at 3 o'clock in the morning on the thing. It's very difficult to do. So we don't do that. We just serve from 5 to 10 or 11 o'clock in terms of dinner and a limited number of hours for lunch. But the name of the game is getting them off the table to some other area. So because only 10 or 15% of the people are buying dessert, he moves them off the table. And he gives everybody a cordial after dinner. Doesn't charge for it. That's enough, and coffee. So coffee and the cordial are included. The dessert is extra if they want it, but they have to go to the other room. But you see, what a silly thing. To let a party sit for 20 minutes or 30 minutes on a table, a party of 4, sit there while one person has dessert. That's obscene. You see, you get maybe $2 for that 20 minutes. And you understand that when you put a plate of food down, a meal, a big dinner, in front of the average adult human being, what are we talking about? 14 bites and that's dinner, or 12 bites and that's the whole dinner. How long does it take to eat that plate of food? Not much more than 15 or 20 minutes. It'll be gone. In the finest of restaurants, low price restaurants or anywhere. It's gone in 15 or 20 minutes. We know what to do. For the 20 minutes that they're eating the main meal, the chair rent times 4 people, let's say, is now $20 or $30 for 20 minutes. And then suddenly we rent the same chair for 20 additional minutes for $2. Well, there's a high demand on a Saturday night. Got to be craziness. So you figure out what you can do. Can you give a better value? Hey, at that restaurant, I like to go to this garden-type area where he serves dessert. It really is kind of fun and friendly. You're standing up. Or you can have a table out there, but it's a pretty garden. You're standing up and walking around, getting away from the dinner table. Now you go out here to this lovely garden where he has gorgeous flowers and all kinds of things, some planted, some just displayed. But the idea of going to another pleasant area makes his restaurant a little bit special, a little bit different. And now he's got the table to use again for another 45 minutes or hour. He's getting an hour turn, plus the people are filling up this dessert area. Now, some people stay and order a second drink or whatever it might be in that lounge area. But it's full and exciting to go into his lounge because it's always full of people in there for the cordials and the coffee and some of them for dessert. All right, enough of that. Let me talk just a bit about product and then presentation and then people, and then get on to the process here that's so important. In terms of product, we start on the premise that we got to do things that the help are proud of. There's some, I want to name some restaurant chains and talk a little bit about those types of things. You see, as I've said to you a couple times already, our customers and our employees have to be proud of their favorite place to go and eat. So your people that work for you have to be proud of that place. And that pride comes not just at the beginning, like that example I gave you with the new service person, but comes because there's new things happening there. And because you're scoring victories, more customers this year than last year, more occupancy, not percentages. They don't get excited about percentages. They get excited about room nights. So you're talking about the room nights that you have compared to before, how far ahead you are. They share that excitement and pride with their families, with the employees of competitors who are their friends. They share it with each other in terms of places that they go socially and this sort of thing. They're working for a winner. And that's what they want to do. Everybody wants to work for a winner. Okay? And they know why it's winning. They know the kinds of things that it takes to bring this place alive. Now, there's a restaurant chain in the Midwestern United States called Bill Knapp's. Family restaurant, serves chicken, fried chicken, soup, homemade soups, hamburger sandwiches, and things like that. Definitely not a steak restaurant and not a seafood restaurant. That restaurant chain used to have a USDA prime steak on its menu. Best steak there was. They each sold one a week. There are a lot of restaurants each selling one steak a week. That steak had a very high food cost, and the managers would complain about the high percentage food cost and the problem it was with one steak a week. Especially that problem became important when 2 customers came in and ordered steak. They now had to run to another restaurant practically down the road to borrow a steak, you know, to be able to satisfy them. So the steak was always creating difficulty for them. But I want to tell you this. They thought the reason they had the steak on the menu was because the founder liked to eat steak in the restaurants. He didn't. They thought that was the reason, though. Mr. Knapp likes steaks, therefore we have steaks. Mr. Knapp did like steaks. Mr. Knapp probably really didn't know why he liked steaks, but I'll tell you why that was important today, or was important then when he was alive, and is important today. That steak is the best steak that there is in the United States. That steak made the chicken taste better. That steak made the French fried potatoes better, made the milkshakes better, made the chicken soup better. That steak casts a shadow over every other product that they had. They had something special, the best there is. When someone says, what kind of a restaurant is Bill Knapp's, people would say it's a high-quality place. What do you mean high quality? Well, they have everything from USDA prime steaks to fresh fish on their menus. Nobody claimed that the chicken, you know, had died hours before. Nobody claimed that the grilled cheese was being made directly. The cow stood in the backyard and they were just making the cheese right there. Nobody claimed any of that. But the steak was an anchor for the employees to point with pride and say, best there is. And we're trying to be the best there is at everything. That restaurant chain has a high aura of quality whenever you talk to a Bill Knapp customer. Now, Wendy's entered the restaurant market, as you know, the hamburger market in the States, and they started out on the basis of having fresh meat. That fresh meat concept gave them the adult portion of the market that Burger King and McDonald's did not realize existed. And Wendy's suddenly got a position in the marketplace that was powerful based on quality. Now, Wendy's has continued that type of marketing with its baked potato program, with its salad bar program, and a company that was founded on the idea by Dave Thomas of never changing suddenly has realized that change is the essence of life. And so they are changing all the time, trying new things, expanding their menu and adding different things. Dave Thomas now says, you guys are wrong, but I do appreciate the appreciation in my stock and all the money I'm being paid, and so I'm letting you go. You see, he's coming from that 50s and 60s school which said simplicity is the answer. And it is if there is no competition. It is if there is a demand that exists for your product that's above and beyond belief. But when you're fighting for one customer at a time, when you do have to be competitive, which you do in this business, then indeed change is where it's all at. So Wendy's started and got its position because of quality and the aura of quality that existed with respect to their product. They use so much beef today in the United States, they don't hardly even ever say anymore fresh beef. But that was the point of difference that anchored them in the marketplace. Now they have a lot of other quality products, and they're not claiming or laying claim to that fresh beef distinction. Now, in the States today, there's another hamburger chain. We're hearing about these gourmet burger chains, the Fuddruckers type of operation. Fuddruckers, high-quality burgers. You know, there's been a number of places like Fuddruckers that have existed for a long time that never became chains. Fuddruckers became a chain. The idea of grinding the beef right there on the premises. Fuddruckers happens to machine form the patty. You don't have to do that. That makes a better hamburger. They're coarse grinding. I'm thinking of a little place now that does this. Coarse grinding the beef, and right behind the cook's line. Elevated on must be like a piece of scaffolding, raised up back of the cooks. There stands this guy with a meat grinder. And he's putting 5 pounds of meat into that grinder, and he's grinding it. Now, when he delivers that pan with 5 pounds of meat in it, the cooks are scooping. They know that if they're serving an 8-ounce burger, they know how many burgers they got to get out of 5 pounds. They just keep count by the pan how many they're getting. If they're getting 4-ounce burgers, they know how many to get. So here comes the correct fat-meat ratio through the grinder. So it's now freshly ground, individually scooped, cooked to order hamburgers. That's got to be better than one that's formed like a hockey puck, comes out of a box, is dropped on a machine and cooked to inventory and held for 10 minutes. Those things taste like hockey pucks, much less act like them. Now, the ultimate authenticity, I suppose, with respect to doing the product right before their eyes is going to be when they stand the cow by the back door. Now you get the order for the burger and you take a whack off its back end and grind it and so forth and move it through. But I'm saying to you, authenticity with respect to product then becomes very, very important. Making it right before their eyes is what's happening. Taking the preparation areas of our kitchens and putting them out in the dining room. Restaurant, Los Angeles, Santa Monica area, called Cutters. Cutters must have 6 islands in that restaurant. I can't remember counting them, but let's say 6 different islands of 6 different work centers, or 4 or more work centers, where they're making everything from ice cream and pasta and baking and cutting meat and cooking, while customers sit at a counter right around where this work is happening. So the production work is become part of the entertainment. The food that is made right before your eyes has got to taste better than that which is coming out of a can or a box or a refrigerator or something in the back of the house. So involving the customer in the drama, if you will, of food production is something that makes for a better product. When they're squirting the product right out of a machine and now it's served in a dish practically what looks like moments later, that's got to be better than that which has been trucked from a warehouse to you, held by you, and is now dished up or plated up in the kitchen and now served. You see, this is genuinely fresh, made-to-order product. It doesn't need to, if you put the two side by side and tasted them and you didn't know which was which, you might not be able to tell the difference. But the point is, there is a huge degree of human ego and logic involved with the argument, it was made right before my eyes. It cannot be better than that. The customer can accept it. Give the customer what he wants in terms of that dining experience. So this idea then of authenticity that relates to the production of the food is extremely important. The next thing that relates, I suppose, today is fresh in terms of product. The freshest product that there is the best product. How to buy from the boats, if you will, that go out only one day. You know, what is the definition of fresh? Maybe they teach you different in South Africa. But I suppose if we were forced to define it in the United States, fresh means dead. That's probably true. We don't serve too much live anymore. I suppose there are examples of live, but we don't use it very often. So it's dead. That's acceptable for fresh. Not stinking. Close, but not quite. Almost is okay. That's still fresh, but stinking, not fresh, okay? So it finally crosses that point when it becomes not fresh, when it starts to stink. Fresh means not frozen. Very close, 1 degree, but not quite frozen, okay? Now, think about those boats that go out and stay out 3 months or 6 months. How can that fish that's caught on the first day taste anything like the one that's caught the last day? How can it? And yet your purveyor, who buys from that supplier, will send you fish from the first day and the last day, and they will be marked on the invoice fresh. Means not frozen, not stinking, and dead. You got it. They don't taste the same. How can you do that? When we talk about fresh, I suppose we have to modify it and say as fresh as you can possibly get. Obviously, the restaurateur that's buying the vegetables right out of the field, day by day, has got a gigantic head start over the person who has them delivered by a truck. They may be months old. They may have been held in a warehouse. They're looking like they're fresh, but they don't have the same flavor as those that are coming right out of the field. They don't have the same potential, but the story of coming out of the field is extremely important. The idea then of fresh coming from boats that go out for 1 day, the idea of fresh fruit, of fresh vegetables, of fresh meat is what got Wendy's into that position. The idea of fresh seafood. You must have some product, I am sure you do, but you must have some product today for sure that is fresh. Because the public is having a love affair with fresh, the likes of which has not occurred, was not even thought of back in the 70s and 60s. Today, they want to know that it's the best there is. All right, the idea, I mentioned to you the idea of homemade and as part of authenticity from pasta machines, and even in the fast food places, Hardee's restaurants and McDonald's now doing biscuits. Croissants being done by Burger King. They're having those things baked in the units. They never made anything in one of those fast food units before. Now suddenly they're finding it's necessary to have some things that are made there. The biscuits that Hardee's makes that are served with breakfast make the hamburger taste better at dinner time. The fact is, this is a restaurant that makes some of its own food is better than a restaurant that makes none of its own food. Mostly it's coming in a tractor trailer, and it's being delivered, if you will, to a walk-in refrigerator in the middle of the night in terms of those restaurants. So I'm saying to you, hey, every restaurant, at every price level. And the higher you get in price, then the more in terms of authenticity you have to have in terms of the customer experience. That idea of teaching your helping the customers how to be proud, if you will, of the product. Related to this thing is another thought or idea, and that is cooking food to order. In my very busy restaurant with 3 cooks, the trick is how to cook the food to order. How to cook that food to order. I have to sequence the production of that food, if you will, so that everything from your table or mine finishes at the same time. I've got to be able to have a 15-minute item finishing the same as an item that's going to take 30 seconds to cook. And so I have to sequence that production so that the 4 items at this table all finish at the same time. Cooking food to order. Now, you know, from the idea of hot food's hot and cold food's cold, that basic idea means that now that we've got it cooked to order, we've got to get it onto a very hot plate. And there, to get the hot plate, we're talking about 375 degrees in our ovens, and we put those plates in a convection oven. We want to heat them really hot. Now, the next thing that happens is cook-to-order food being put on a very hot plate. That continues to cook the food, no doubt. The first item on the plate will continue to cook so that we get continuity. We happen to put a vegetable on the plate first, and we're using a vegetable that we prepare for that evening or for that week or that month that's fresh and very interesting, but we put it on there undercooked to start with, now finishing on the plate. It takes the first shock of heat out of the plate. Next we put on the entree type item onto that plate, and we accumulate the items on that plate. The plate is now not 375 degrees when it's leaving for the dining room. Maybe it's at 160 degrees, but that's pretty hot still. Now when we move to the dining room, we got to get it out there fast, and that's the delivery system. How you get that food into the dining room so that it's out there when it's still at its best. It's dying when it comes out of the oven and off the stove. Now you must move quickly with that food. And so we've changed from the busboy system to the food runner system. And so we don't have people clearing and setting tables and carrying dirty dishes to the kitchen. Those are waiters and waitresses that do that for me. I want them staying in the dining room, paying attention to their customers. We will have the food runners deliver the food to the dining room, and they aren't taught, just like busboys in the United States, aren't taught to talk to customers. Those nice young men are never given anything to say to the customers. Occasionally they direct people to the restrooms and things like that, but they're not taught as part of the basic service to say something to customers. Our food runners aren't either. The trick then is for them to deliver the food when it's ready and set it down right here, right before their eyes. They know it's their dinner. If we're going to let it die and mismanagement, let's let them watch the disaster develop right in front of them. You understand that when food is sitting in the dining room, yours or mine, not on the table, there is going to be an economic catastrophe here if we don't get it down fast. There's a certain sense of hysteria that's built into my employees about the fact when they see food sitting. 1, it's slowing the turn down when it's sitting, and 2, it isn't getting better when it's sitting, and 3, if they don't get to it, maybe I will, and then there will be trouble if I get there ahead of them. And so whether it's their food or not, my help will get to that food and put it down in front of the customer and say the same thing that you hear at almost every restaurant in the United States. Be careful, the plate is very hot. That's when the customers always put their finger on the plate. I mean, I do it because I know damn well they're lying when they say that. In my restaurant, when they do it, I want to see smoke when it hits the plate. I want them to say, "Oh, be careful, the plates are very hot." You see, now I have a chance for the 6th and 7th bite at least to be warm. Maybe to be very warm. The first bite will be hot. I don't care what recipe you got or how great the ingredients are. It is so much better when it's served hot than when it is served stupidly lukewarm. When it's served like every other restaurant does it. I'm saying to you that the eyes of the consumer are what judge quality in your restaurant. I don't care what you paid for that food. I don't care how fantastic the training and skill of the chef is in that kitchen, how much you have invested in your facility. If it isn't delivered hot, you have just failed the course. You have just done the most ridiculous thing you can do with food, and that is serving it lukewarm or lukecool. You serve it very warm or very cold. Now you're a winner. You're a winner. And it matters not all about the investment and the chef and the fine service and the training programs or anything else. You just got to win at fundamentals to be very good in terms of this business. Now, the idea of that delivery to customers is so important. You know, we see the number systems and you see all this other stuff. The number systems don't do anything. The first priority for a service person is customers. If my number is lighted up there and I'm your server, I've got to stay in line at the service bar to get drinks. I've got to clear this table because the hostess is standing there with another party to seat. I've got to continue taking this dinner order in spite of the fact that the number is lighted. I've got to continue taking the dinner order. There's a little restaurant chain down there that put beepers on the waitress because the numbers didn't draw their attention. And now, it's very distracting to eat in those restaurants because they're busy. And now when you're sitting there, you know, at a table and you're eating your dinner, the waitress is standing and taking an order at the table and you hear, and she swats herself on the back end and puts the beeper out, and the next minute it toots again, and she continues taking the order. I told the guy who owns that chain, because he's a good friend, I said, give them an electric shock. That'll get their attention. I said, you know, when they stand there and they're taking the order, it doesn't have to make a noise. I said, just make them jump, you know, when this... Give them 30 seconds to get the food, and then tell the cooks they can do anything they want with that beeper there. They can hit them with a strong jolt out there in the dining room if that's going to get their attention. I said, you watch those waitresses fly to the kitchen. It will be hard to get help in this restaurant, but you'll get attention immediately. And I said, if you don't do that, why don't you go food runners and deliver this food? I said, the turnover happens when you keep servers in the dining room. You get better service. When they're being attentive to people and to the needs of their customers, keeping them working with the customers and delivering things to them so they can put it down. Now we can organize the production. And that food comes 15 minutes after we receive the order in the kitchen. So we happen to have, because we're very big and busy, because by no means would I ever recommend for a small restaurant to do this as a magic answer, because computers aren't any magic answer. They help me give better service in my restaurant. They don't save me money, they cost me money, but I tell you what, I'm willing to invest in service because I eliminate the lines at service bars. My servers have their drinks ready for them by the time they get to the service bar on the thing simply by remote ordering that thing. When they order food from the kitchen, we pull that tape that's printed out in the kitchen and we hit it with a timestamp that's timed. The clock is set 15 minutes ahead. That's telling the expediter in the kitchen that 15 minutes from now that food better be out in the dining room. He knows when he's on time. He's got a target to work for. So he's ordering that food and he's picking up that food and he's staying on time if he's doing good work. Now, on those busy Saturday nights I described, periodically I talk to him in the kitchen because, you see, I don't want any surprises at the front door. I'm estimating how long the wait is, and I'm telling people when they can have a reservation on the phone, and I have to know whether he's staying on time pretty well. So whether it's pride or fear, I call him in the kitchen and say, are you on time? And he says, yes. And then he hangs up and he goes back and says, we better hustle now because I think we're a little behind. And I just told him we were on time here. I know that. So I have to call him 3 or 4 times a night to wind him up so that he stays on time and doesn't fall too far off, or so that he initiates the call when for no good reason or for some reason, some problem that has developed, he is now falling behind. He wants to tell me so that I don't get mad at him at the end of the night. Because if I've made a promise to you to seat you in 20 minutes, then I'm going to keep it in 20 minutes. We're going to get there. But if it turns out to be an hour and 20 minutes, you're not going to be very understanding about this sort of a thing, and I can't blame you. It was a stupid estimate, and if I'm creating the problem by a slow kitchen or for one reason or another, then I have to work that out. So I have to know where we're at in terms of that kitchen as we go through the course of a very busy evening. Now lastly, in terms of product, there's this idea of variety that becomes important. Variety and change. Let me say about variety. You know, there's a tremendous interest in more and more things being available. Let me give you an example. Some of the restaurants, while we have this de-emphasis of alcohol in the States as we do elsewhere in the world, restaurants are now offering more varieties of beer. And I was at one place in Australia not too long ago where they had only Australian beers there. They had them from all over Australia, and if you drank 13 of them, they gave you a card. If you drank 13 of them, they gave you a T-shirt that said, "I drank my way around Australia." I thought that was such a neat idea. And then I asked the guy about it, and he says, "You know what one of these beers is?" And I said, "No." He says, "It's called a Darwin Stubby. That's got to be about 4 quarts of beer, you know, in one bottle." And I said, "Oh my God, what happens when they hit that one?" He says, "Oh, they share it with the table next to them and all around here. They go around pouring everybody a glass of beer so they get through that Darwin Stubby." But he said, that's part of this Australian experience that we give them. He said, I've never, except a group of people, I've never met anybody who drank them all in one evening. He said, they come back, and he said, but they love that T-shirt. We don't even put their name on it. A variety of beers, unusual beers, interesting ones from different places. I see that happening in a lot of places. Another thing I see happening, and I started to notice it on the airlines somewhere in the United States the other day, that now they're offering port wines, and a variety of them. 2, 3, or 4 different ports. Different parts of the world, not some good, some not so good, but they're suggesting that people try different ones and decide which one they like themselves. The idea of making food exciting and interesting by having people do different things, not be just hung up on the same standard things. They may like their old favorite, but they're perfectly willing to try something brand new if it has the possibility of being better. If it shows, if they can make a judgment and say, you know, I really like this kind of port wine better than that. I really like it from here better than from there. Very interesting. You see, that's part of this thing of helping give people an ego trip. So variety of food in terms of oysters, in terms of beverages, in terms of lobsters, in terms of steaks, in terms of all kinds of things. How to offer them more selection while maintaining quality. That becomes part of the product management. The idea of change. Let me just give you the process for that one more time. How you make food exciting when you're changing the food. All right? It starts with testing and a commitment to testing. So every Saturday we're going to test these recipes. Next we get one that's pretty good. The chef and the manager and I get one that's pretty good. Now the next thing we do is we have the help vote on it. Have the bellman vote on it and the desk clerks vote on it. Those idiots don't know anything about food, you understand? That's what the chef tells me. He's Swiss, remember? Now, he says, why are you having them vote on my food? What do they know? And I said, well, just understand, they're the ones who got to make it interesting. If they don't like it, we aren't going to sell it. So they got to like it first. So we have waiters and waitresses, bartenders, and all kinds of people who are facing the public. Even the maids were taste testing the food. In the course of a month, they're going to vote on this food. We don't tell them what it is or how it's made. And they've tried some pretty exotic stuff over the years, and so they're not sure what it is when it looks like something, but they know better than that. Whatever it is, it cannot be what it looks like. That's too simple. So they try something. It's now fun. They say, that's very good. If we don't get 85% of them telling us that that's very good, then we don't introduce the item. Once, they voted us down. You see, the chef took them for granted. And he cooked the food at 10 o'clock in the morning and served it at 2 in the afternoon. But he was busy. He had all kinds of Swiss reasons for why he did this. I said, but the point is, if you'd have walked in that room, they'd have thrown it at you. You understand? I stood in there and I said, well, he had good intentions. He really isn't trying to poison you. This food, once upon a time, was pretty good. It was high quality and the type item I'd like to serve here. But one thing's for sure, we will never serve this item now. You voted it out. I told the chef, I said, the next time they vote it out, I said, it's because you blew it. We got a great item and a great recipe when we're going to submit it to them, and now we got to serve it to them as good as we serve it to the customers. Cooked to order, done the right way. So let us behave ourselves and don't treat the employees like a big pain in the backside. They are very important here in terms of generating this excitement, so let us now give it to them 100% in terms of their dining experience. Now they vote. Next thing we do is nothing. Now that they've approved it, we now don't do anything. Now it's news. Here's an item that will be introduced. And they know the story. So they meet me, let's say in the restaurant, a regular customer, And now they say, when I'm saying what's new, or I'm talking to them about something, they say, we got a new item coming. Boy, would you like it. We won't have it maybe for a month or two, but it's coming. We tested it last Friday. They got news to talk to the customers about. News about food by simply not introducing this item. Now, the next thing that happens is we put that program into market research. Next thing. Now, I got an item that we have in market research now that I'll tell you about. That we've got, well, we've actually just got it out of market research. But at any rate, I'll tell you about this item. We got it voted on and approved. Now, we didn't do anything. They talked about it. Now, I'm giving samples away at the front door. I charge that to advertising. I'm giving little samples, bite-sized pieces, 1 bite for every person in the party. Not a lot, not a big plate full of food, just 1 bite. I tell them it's market research. Tell me what you think it is and should we put it on the menu? Now these people are trying it and they're guessing it's something or other and something or other and all kinds of different things. It's fun when you don't know what the food is. Now you're guessing what you think it is, and then we explain to them what it is and where it's from. The item is bugs. Now bugs is too funny. When I first saw this in Australia, I said, oh my God. I said, they are serving bugs here. I don't care what it is or what it even tastes like. I got to have those in Florida, because if ever there was a part of the world that has a lot of bugs, it's Florida. And I said, if we've got an edible bug, I said, my God, those people in Florida won't believe it. They'll think we're catching them right there in the restaurant, you know, and we're serving them. So bugs happen to be a crustacean from Australia that doesn't look like a lobster, but the meat tastes like lobster meat, and they happen to burrow and be in the sand and be a byproduct of their scallop industry down there. They catch them and they used to throw them away till about 5 years ago. Now, I have those bugs shipped to me, and of course they got to be frozen when they're coming from Australia to the United States, because we're going to hold them for a long time. We're not having a plane come every day with a couple of them on it. So the idea of these bugs now, they appear, I give samples away, so the people taste them and they eat them. And they say, wow, that's good, tastes a lot like lobster. Boy, that is really delicious. You should put it on the menu. What is it? And we explain, well, they're bugs. Oh my God. Are they fresh or frozen? Got to be the first customer question, right? Fresh or frozen? And then they say, you know, when you turn the lights on at night, do you catch them right here running around in the restaurant, or what happens here? So now we tell them the story about where the bugs are from and this sort of thing. Now, now in my restaurant, the next step on this food item is we will now have this product available not on the menu. That means that the server says we have a new item and has to describe this new item. It's available not on the menu. Now, if it's a person that had a sample of it over the last 2 or 3 months, person that's had a sample of the bugs, she says it's called bugs. They go, oh, I've had them here before. Your friends are looking at you kind of funny, like you've been in here eating bugs before. You brought me to this place that serves these things, whatever they are. I'm thinking, what's the matter with you? Did you have too much to drink that night and you just kind of went for anything, or what was it? So now the story has to be told by the customer. If they've never had them before, now the server will tell the story. And people say, well, that sounds interesting. Are they good? Oh, yes, the server shows that they're good because they're kind of enthusiastic about them. And maybe does not get an order for them. But the people are interested. Do you sell a lot of them? The server said, absolutely we do. We sell an awful lot. See the people over there? They're having bugs for dinner. Over there, they're having bugs for dinner. There's all kinds of people around here having bugs for dinner. Right here in the dining room, we sell a lot. And we do sell a lot of bugs because the servers are excited. Next step in that program after not on the menu is now they're on the menu. When they're on the menu, as they are today at the 15th Street Fisheries, there is no description. It simply says bugs, $15.95. Now, I tell my servers, the way we do this is you must not talk about bugs when you come to the table. We put a menu on the table, and you talk about 4 or 5 items that you think are especially good today, but never talk about a couple of items, and one of them is bugs. I said, because you see, if these people have never been to the restaurant before, they're going to be looking at that menu, and they're going to say, my God, what's this down the left-hand corner here? I've never been to a restaurant that served bugs before. And they're going to kind of sneak up on bugs when you come back to get the order. They're going to say, oh, I noticed you have bugs on the menu. Are they popular? You know, they're going to sneak up on it. Like, we've been in a lot of places that have bugs. I wonder if they sell here, you know, on the thing, or what happens. You know, are these Florida bugs, you know, that we have here? What is this? So they're going to talk to you about this. And so now you tell them the story. But I tell you what, we find a lot of people A lot of people will come to the restaurant willing, you know, perfect, whether they're just men in a party of commercial people that are there in town, or whether they're tourists, or whether they're local people, and they've never had, somebody will take an order. Somebody will get up their nerve and say, if they're as good as lobster, then I'm going to try them, and we'll see. And the next thing you know, everybody at the table is having a bite or two of their bugs, and pretty soon they don't have any dinner. You know, everybody has had them. Now, we listen, or I listen at the front door of the restaurant, and I had a laugh right out loud the other night. 4 salesmen come in, obviously from out of town. They come into the restaurant. They're going by me, about to be seated. You know, the host has got them, about to be seated. And the one guy's saying, yeah, he said, this is that restaurant that has bugs on the menu. I was here about 6 months ago, and I told him to put them on the menu. And he said, they're really very good. He said, you're going to... This other guy says, bugs? I never eaten a place that served bugs before. And this guy says, oh, bugs come from Australia. They're really kind of neat. It's a crustacean. He starts talking about this thing. He said, in fact, they're a member of the spider family. How to win friends and influence people. He's going to order those bugs. I know he did. He had to order them at his table. He had so sold those bugs to his friends, he had to order them because they weren't about to order spiders for dinner. He was going to order them, and he was going to twist their arms and make them each take a little bite and find out how good these things were. Technically, they're really not a member of the spider family, but this guy happened to think it was, and that he added to the story. All right, so the idea of introduction of interesting new food. Done it with alligator, done it with conch, done it with shark, done it with all kinds of different things way before the time. Got permission to do it with alligator in Florida. Way before, when alligator was still on the endangered species list and nobody could do it in the United States, I asked for permission. I said, hey, we're throwing away a lot of alligator meat that's being raised on farms. I don't want to buy all the alligator meat. I just want to buy a little of the alligator meat from those farms. And let's see if there's a market for it in nice restaurants. Did I know there was a market? I was going to make the market. I understood that. Got permission to serve alligator 2 years before it was legal. And a special test made every one of the national major television networks and every one of the big talk television news shows in the United States, because we were the pioneer on alligator. Here's a restaurant in Florida selling alligator on the thing. So, brother, did that ever help Marina Bay? Did that ever help that restaurant in terms of doing something interesting with a very good food product? See, I've hardly ever tasted anything, anywhere, that couldn't be made to taste real good. Some of it you got to figure out how to tenderize it. Some of it you got to figure out how to cook it. But taste good, almost anything can be done. My kids tell me that about the only thing I haven't been able to figure out yet is liver. They say when you're doing liver, you can fix it up so it almost doesn't taste like liver, but we know that it is. And somehow it doesn't taste right to us. But I'll tell you what, with almost any food product, to make it taste good, a local food product like alligator, that fits in Florida, not New York, not in Texas, not in California. But Florida, it's part of the expectation. How to take some of those local products. If it ever became legal to sell seagulls or flamingos or